Bem-vindos ao Here's the Thing, mais programa semanal com quem falamos com pessoas interessantes da nossa comunidade e tópicos com respeito ao que está a passar na nossa sociedade, principalmente no Canadá. Our guest today is the Honourable Ahmed Hussen. He's the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development, and he represents the riding of York Southwestern since 2015. Mr. Hussen is the first Somali Canadian to be elected to the House of Commons and the first to hold a cabinet position. Welcome, Mr. Hussen, once again to 𝗀𝗺𝗀𝗀𝗀 TV.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I suppose that one of the reasons that we're going to be speaking today is the budget that was tabled yesterday.
Yes.
By 𝗀𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗀. And you know, the budget, after reading major portions of it, is a representation of things that affect a lot of women and children, indigenous population, and people of minority backgrounds. Your portfolio that you look after as an MP looks after some of the people that have been most affected by this pandemic, being children, women, and generally the social aspects of the population. Was that on purpose, or that the budget addressed these things? Because really, mentally it has had a huge effect socially on people.
Absolutely, of course. The budget really had two goals. One is to continue to support Canadians to deal with the negative and difficult impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, the pandemic is still going, even though we're continuing to increase the vaccination and the availability of the doses of vaccines. And the second goal of the budget is about having a strong, inclusive economic recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. So those two things, which means real investments in people, real investments in communities. And the biggest item there is a $30 billion plan to invest in early learning and childcare, setting up a Canada-wide system of early learning and childcare that introduces deep affordability, high quality, inclusivity and accessibility into the system. And we're very ambitious in that regard. We intend to make sure that there is an average reduction of fees by 50% by the end of 2022, and then down further to bring daily childcare fees to $10 a day by the end of 5 years. And we'll do this with provinces and territories, but we will be putting significant dollars to get the job done. In addition to that, there is a lot of help for students, for youth, skills training for youth and adults, extending the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy for workers, extending the Canada Emergency Rental Subsidy for businesses, more money for housing. The Rapid Housing Initiative will see an investment of $1.5 billion and a $300 million fund to enable nonprofit organizations to be able to acquire vacant and unused commercial properties to convert them into affordable housing. Labor protection for gig workers. These are workers who are working in non-traditional jobs like driving Uber. And a lot of money to enable $5.7 billion for youth to pursue and continue their education. We're doubling the Canada Student Grant. We're creating 215,000 jobs, and we will be implementing by January 2022 a 1% tax on the value of non-resident, non-Canadian owned real estate that is vacant or underused. That will raise $700 million that will be used to make housing even more affordable for Canadians.
This budget, it's got a little bit of everything for almost every Canadian and every group that you're trying to target that has been affected or is affected by socially at this time in Canada. We've had huge losses in jobs. We've had many business closing. This budget, is this a budget to really get Canada going, or is it a precursor to an election sometime in September?
No, this is about this budget is about helping Canadians now to deal with COVID, and then making sure that we recover strongly from COVID. We have to stimulate the economy to get back jobs. And by the way, our measures have been working. If you look at the jobs that we lost at the beginning of the pandemic, 80% of those jobs have come back. And that's because of the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and all the support we've been giving to businesses and the nonprofit sector. If you compare that with the United States, only 50% of their jobs have come back. So our measures are working. We need to do more to stimulate the economy and have a strong economic recovery. And that's our focus. Our focus is helping Canadians because people are still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is keeping Canadians healthy, bringing as many vaccines as possible so that people can be vaccinated and protected from COVID, and making sure that we help the most vulnerable in our communities, but also making sure that we recover in a very strong manner by making the necessary investments now.
The investments that are being made now are not being balanced by additional revenues, by taxes or anything of this nature to balance the budget at some point in the future, even though the government is suggesting that in another 5 years we should be back to pre-pandemic levels when it comes to budgets. But counting that the raising of funds to balance this budget at some point will be based strictly on an improving economy and addition of jobs and so on, do you think that this is really feasible?
When you're facing a pandemic and people are suffering and the economy is taking a real hit because of the impacts of the pandemic on certain sectors. Other sectors are doing well. There are certain sectors that are challenged. We have two choices. The first choice is what the Conservatives did in 2008 in the last recession, where they didn't invest in people, they didn't invest in communities, they didn't invest in businesses. And what happened? Was that the recession was much deeper and much more hurtful to Canadians, and it took longer to recover economically. We don't intend to make that mistake. The time to invest is now. It is either that we help people now, or that people fall further behind, businesses close, and the recovery takes longer and is more painful in the process. So the job of government is to help people, and that's exactly what we're doing now. In terms of the investments we're making for the post-pandemic world, for the recovery process, that is, again, very smart, thoughtful investments to enable us to take advantage of the growing green economy in the clean technology sector, but also investing in youth, making sure that they improve their skills to be prepared for the jobs of the future. So, we're doing the things that we need to do, making investments in infrastructure and so on, so that we're able to have a much stronger and much more inclusive economic recovery. The recovery will happen. The question is, how many people will be part of that recovery? And we want no one to be left behind. And that's the difference between our approach and the Conservative approach.
The children's childcare program has been spoken about by the Liberals and others for many years. It never came to fruition. Right now, this plan appears to have some legs to move forward. It mirrors more or less the Quebec plan, but it's spread over 5 years, and it requires the cooperation of the provinces in paying possibly 50% of it. If certain provinces choose not to participate in funding their 50%, How are you going to implement this program, let's say, in Ontario, if Ford decides that he doesn't want to pay for it?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, we haven't started the negotiations to establish a Canada-wide system. So I don't want to prejudge those negotiations. But here's what I'll say. A couple of things. Number one, everyone in Canada supports more affordable childcare. And what has changed now, the reason I am very, very confident is that the pandemic has shown the impact of not having childcare, access to affordable childcare. So that is why you're seeing business groups, presidents of banks and chambers of commerce calling for more affordable childcare. Second, we are already working with provinces on childcare. Since 2017, the federal government has been investing in increasing the affordable childcare spaces through bilateral agreements beginning in 2017. Those investments will continue. And that has shown that we are able to partner on this topic, on this issue, even though it's a provincial jurisdiction. But the provinces have welcomed those federal investments. What we're saying now is we want to make more investments, and we want the provinces and territories to join us so that we can make childcare deeply affordable for every child in Canada. And that is something that I think philosophically you will find many provinces who are willing and able to do that. Of course, we may not agree on everything, but I believe that once we start the negotiation process, we'll be able to figure out a way to get to the same goals, while also, of course, paying particular attention to local circumstances. Let me give you a very good example. We committed $420 million in the fall economic statement last year to invest and help provinces and territories to recruit more early childhood educators. So these are the teachers who are delivering high quality early learning for the children. It's not a federal area at all. That is usually something that provinces, when it comes to skills training for early childhood educators and salary increases and so on, and the recruitment costs, that is completely in a provincial area. But we decided to invest an additional $420 million in federal money and provide it to provinces and territories, because we want to help them. And we know that we cannot establish a Canada-wide system and create more spaces if we don't have enough teachers. So this is our way of saying we're here. The second reason I am more confident this time is because one is the pandemic. The second one is the government of Canada, through this budget, is showing that we are here for the long term, that we're not going to join the provinces briefly and then leave, and they have to deal with the consequences. That's not going to happen. And the proof is this budget shows that we will invest $30 billion over 5 years, and then once the 5-year period is over and we achieve hopefully the average of $10 a day daycare, we'll continue the investments. So there will be federal investments of $9.2 billion a year permanently. Now that gives confidence and assurance to provinces and territories that we will be here for the long term.
What financial economic benefits will this childcare program bring to the country?
Huge.
As
Huge.
It affects families?
Huge. Number one, you will have literally hundreds of thousands of women who rejoin the workforce. That improves the gross domestic product. It improves productivity. It introduces less social service costs. It contributes to more tax revenue collected by both provincial governments, territorial governments, and the federal government. And last but not least, it leads to a closing of the gap between men and women participating in the workforce, and it goes a long way to filling unfilled jobs now. A lot of industries in Canada don't have enough workers. That's why we bring in skilled immigrants to fill those jobs, particularly in a number of sectors. And having hundreds of thousands of women rejoin the workforce will enable us to fill those jobs, right?
I
So we're
agree with
talking
you
about,
that it will bring women back to the workforce. Many have left their positions because of COVID, so we need to bring them back.
But even the ones who want to come back are also being held back because of lack of affordable childcare. And then there are others who never really have been working over the last number of years because of this barrier. Childcare fees are very expensive, especially in some of the urban centers of Canada.
Places like Toronto.
Absolutely. You know, we're talking about $50 a day, $65 a day in Markham. So that's a real barrier for families, especially if you have more than one kid. You know, and the burden mostly falls on women with children. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing the needs of those families. And by the way, if you're paying $50 a day per child, and we reduce that by an average of half before the end of 22, and then we bring it down to an average of $10 in 5 years, that's real money going back to your pocket. And you know, if in the case of 2 kids, that's $40 for each kid going back into your pocket, $80 for the 2 kids, right? I mean, that's real savings for those families, and it makes a big difference in their lives.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you, childcare is no longer a luxury; it's a complete necessity for these families.
Well, what we will need to accompany this program is to have enough childcare spaces created so that they can intake the number of children that will be available for daycare. And in this case, there seems to be a huge shortage in licensed daycares to accommodate the new program. How do you view that?
Well, you know, again, these are issues that we will have to sort out through the negotiations with provinces and territories, and different provinces have different views on these issues. We are in favor of publicly run, high-quality, affordable childcare spaces, and that's what federal dollars will be primarily used for. Although we recognize that the private sector also has a role to play.
The pandemic levels that we are experiencing, you know, there's been many jobs lost. There could be as many as 120,000 small businesses closing. I know that you've extended the wage program and the CEIA program to help people along. These programs will probably end in September. Where do you think the new jobs will be coming from, since you want to create about 1 million jobs by the end of 2021?
I think it's upskilling people, providing people with opportunities for skills training and paying for that, investing in young people, investing in the economy, incentivizing the commercialization of world-leading Canadian green and clean technology. A lot of that will of course create jobs. The same goes for childcare. A lot of those spots that will be created will need people to run those centers, and this is primarily a female workforce. Investments in housing, for example, $1.5 billion is going to the Rapid Housing Initiative. That will stimulate the economy. You know, those housing investments will lead to thousands of jobs being created to build those homes. Investing hundreds of millions of dollars in different programs within the National Housing Strategy, which will also create more jobs and stimulate the economy as we recover. So there's a lot, and we have a huge infrastructure plan that will also stimulate the economy and will act as an economic stimulus. So there's a lot in the budget that is very much targeted to have a very strong and sustained economic impact. And you know, and that is why we were very careful about making sure that our investments are really about helping people, but also about contributing to a sustained and long-term economic recovery for Canadians.
Most of these programs, Minister Hussen, are spread over about 5 years and so on. Meanwhile, you know, and I'm very pleased to see that the housing initiative will provide, an infrastructure initiative, it will provide a lot of jobs in the construction sector and other sectors that are associated with. In the meantime, we have a huge shortage of construction workers and people to do this kind of work. We still, even though, as you know, there's still a lot of employees that are working on the ground and illegal in Canada, thousands and thousands, and Canada continues with the process of deporting quite a few of them, and these are people that really have been here for a long time and have the skills that are needed to really help Canada and its economy as it's restarting. Why are we still, the immigration levels this year were quite low. Why are we still deporting people that have been here for a long time? And why are, we not allowing or making it easier for people with trades such as construction to come in? Why are we still putting so many barriers?
Well, first of all, I think your question is an important question. I think you're partially right, because I think your question missed the fact that we have taken action to regularize some undocumented workers and their families. In fact, I'm the minister who introduced that. I don't know if you're aware.
Yes.
But towards the end of my time as Minister of Immigration, one of the policies that I introduced was to regularize thousands of construction workers, undocumented construction workers and their families in the Greater Toronto area. And many people benefited from that. And I'm the first immigration minister to do that in a very long time. This was something that many other ministers tried to do, but just couldn't do it for some reason or the other. But when I saw that issue, I acted, and many people benefited. In addition to that, I also created thousands of new spaces in our overall immigration system for more pathways to permanent residency for temporary foreign workers and others, and easing that process. I'm the minister who got rid of the designated country of origin, which was a discriminatory policy that really disadvantaged a number of folks from Brazil and Mexico and a number of European countries. So is that the perfect solution? Absolutely not. I don't pretend to say that, but I did start that work. Our government did do that, and we recognize that we need to do more. So if you're asking for my opinion and my feeling on that, I believe that people who have been here, who are working, who have never committed a criminal offense, who have family connections to Canadians, should be regularized.
I think so. If somebody has been acquiring skills for 4, 5, 6 years, and they've been in this country,
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Paying taxes and so on, and at some point now suddenly they're leaving, and I know several cases even now where this is happening. It's a shame to lose citizens like this, and I would hope that you're responsible for families, still responsible for families, that perhaps you can bring this up again to government, because we have ready-made citizen labor in here that is being deported, and I don't think it's good for the country. But in addition to that, we need more people to come in that are willing to work on those jobs that are not ITAC.
That's right. That's right. There's a skills shortage in those industries. So these people, we actually need them. And that's why I did that pilot program, right? To regularize them, because yes, it was a humanitarian gesture, but it is also because we need their skills today more than ever before in the construction industry and other industries. So we have to be smart about this, and I'm not going to disagree with you. And in fact, I am the minister who continue to push on this, and I will continue to push on this in my current portfolio as Minister for Families, Children and Social Development. Unfortunately, I have to run because I have to be to join Parliament proceedings. But it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And
well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate hopefully in the future we can talk a little bit more about this budget and moving forward. So I thank you and
I just want to show you like the level of ambition in our government. So take the Rapid Housing Initiative. It's a new program. I introduced it in October, and it's a program to build, as the name says, rapid housing. If you know, to access that funding, if a non-profit or builder cannot build affordable housing rapidly, meaning in 12 months or less, they don't get that money. So we obtained $1 billion in October to build $1 billion to build 3,000 affordable housing units across the country. That was our target. Guess what the reality became? 4,777. So we exceeded the target. Why? Because when you bring a program like that, people leverage those dollars and they stretch the dollars to do more. So communities stepped up, cities stepped up, and organizations stepped up to stretch the dollars. So our target was 3,000. We would have been happy with 3,000, but we're getting 4,777.
Well, hopefully
because of that, now the new Rapid Housing Initiative will have new investment of an additional 1.5 billion. So that, because the need is still there, right?
Hopefully municipalities will continue to cooperate with your program in issuing timely permits and getting construction along so that this really happens.
Which you will like. In January 2022, by January 2022, we will implement a 1% tax of the value of a home owned by a non-resident, non-Canadian resident who owns a vacant or underused real estate. And this will generate $700 million in funding that will be returned to create more affordable housing. And possibly, so again, we don't want foreigners buying real estate and keeping it vacant.
Yeah, and hopefully cool down the real estate market a little bit.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Hussen, and good luck and we'll talk to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.